revisiting my dreams with the king.
Welcome to The Ride, a journey to your dreams. I'm your host, Johnnie King III, aka Still Chill Leroy, and this is The Ride, the Revisit Your Dreams podcast right here on YouTube.com. I have a very special guest today. You know, here at Revisit Your Dreams, I will introduce that guest to you, but here at Revisit Your Dreams, our mission is to motivate, to encourage, to inspire, to share knowledge and wisdom, to explore real-life testimonies of trial, error, and success, and even deliver a few laughs along the way. My very special guest today is a lifelong leader and mentor in the game of basketball. Is currently the head basketball coach at St. Cecilia High School in Nashville, Tennessee. He also serves as assistant head coach for the women's basketball program at Volunteer State College. He formerly coached both men's and women's basketball program at Fisk University, an HBCU in Nashville. He's a proprietor of the Rise, a national NIL consulting firm, and the creator, curator, and host of the Pull-Up podcast with Coach Tony Thompson. Please welcome to the show my brother and very special guest, Coach Tony Thompson. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jay King, what's up, baby, man? Glad to be here, man. Appreciate it. We've been a long time trying to get this together, man. I welcome the opportunity to talk to you this morning, man.
Yeah, man, definitely. We're trying to get together, but I'm glad to be here today. I like to start off the show, each episode. What I like to do is tell the audience a little bit about how I know each guest. Each guest that I interview, I know them personally in some capacity. Some people I've known longer than others. Some people are family members, friends, co-workers, former classmates or teammates. Coach Tony is someone who I worked with briefly recently in the past couple of years in a marketing firm that we have a mutual friend that we kind of did some work for, and just kind of found a liking in terms of the sport of basketball, those conversations, as well as podcasting. And so I've been following his efforts, and decided to invite him on the show, and I'm glad to have him. Coach Tony, you have any feedback on that?
Man, it's been great. Like I said, man, day one, man, we connected day one and kind of knew some of the same people. And one thing I realized in this line of business, especially in the podcast, because it's the new world now, right, John? People are not even watching TV anymore. I remember when I first jumped in this, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I was excited about it. I literally turned the radio off, and my everyday, I can thank my frat brother Ryan and the guys over at Pivot Podcast Show, because at the time, he and Fred and Taylor was getting together. I was watching the Pivot almost every day just to kind of get a feel of what they were doing, the type of questions, the type of guests. And as I got going, man, it was wonderful. I still do that today. I watch my boy $1 million worth of game. I just, kind of jump in that podcast world, man, and it's been going great. So it's wonderful to see you kick back up and do your thing, man. I'm just glad to be here to hang out with you.
Man, likewise. Thank you for hanging out with me. And I've been watching you as well, because, you've not only just been inspired me, but I've been kind of watching how you flow. And I see that you've taken it on as a live effort. This is a pre-recorded effort that will be streaming live. And learning from you and watching your cadence and watching how, your communication with your audience, with your guests, and how you interweave the questions, and just it's a natural conversational flow when watching your podcast, and I appreciate that, man. I really do.
I appreciate people ask me that, Johnny. They said, man, I had one of my biggest guests, LaVar Ball. For those that don't know, that's a big baller brand. He was stunned that it was a live episode, no retakes, no nothing, one shot, one deal. I told him, I want you to mess up. I want, it was a funny episode too, man, because I learned a lot about LaVar. He was cooking cornbread that night, man. He's just being himself. But when you do a live show as opposed to anything else, I found out that my backstream of putting the show together, it comes a little different. My producer, Val, the voice Johnson, who takes care of everything Monday, Tuesday nights, she was stunned to see that I had almost 3, 4, 5 pieces of paperwork that I do. And I'm almost like in an acting class Tuesday through Sunday. I get on my guests, know who they are, get to read my backboard, get an opportunity to get everything. I have that guest send me everything I need, swallow it like a sponge, put that show together, and I want it natural. It's become to the point now, Johnny, that I almost got it down packed of exactly how I want to approach it. And I tell all my guests that we really want to put the podcast out and talk to each other as though we're talking to a middle school group of kids, who have no idea who you are. But at the end of this class, they need to know who you are.
Everything,
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's going great, man.
Man, it's evident. It's evident in the recording. It's evident in everything that I see on podcasts. It's definitely evident that you take the time to know your guests and that you take the time to prepare, questions, or at least have a strong sense of what you want to talk to them about, because the conversation flows easy like that, man. Let's go ahead and get straight into it. Coach Thompson, this episode is called Hoop Dreams Still Do Come True with Coach Tony Thompson. As a lifelong connoisseur and a fan of the game of basketball, when considering the changes in rules, changes in physicality, and changes in playing strategies, do you think these changes are doing more to decrease injury and fatigue to players, or are they doing more to help evolve the entertainment value of the games?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to rewind that 1 second. Hoop Dreams, I love it. Because for those that don't know, I'm from Chicago. Of course, my boy, Arthur Age, he Mr. Hoop Dreams himself from Chicago and all that. And, of course, you have never seen that story, just go watch Heaven is a Playground or Hoop Dreams.
Yeah.
Tell you a little bit about the backstory on that. I think that, what you're seeing right now, Johnny, in the game is the change of the injuries. Fast forward, what just happened with Jason Tatum could happen to anyone because it was an Achilles situation. But I think what you've seen is the physicality of the game has changed over the years from the AAU and college. Hopefully with NIL, and I know we'll talk about it, the change in what it has done, it has now allowed these kids to remain in college for more years to play because of the money. And I'm hoping it's going to change the game. But I think that when you look at the way the game is being played, obviously it's not played as physical as it was when I played back in the day or coming through in the 80s, early 90s. At that point, we were hand checking, grabbing guys, slapping guys, hitting you, come through the lane. You may catch a forearm from Bill Lambier, Robert Parrish. You may get hit from Bill Cartwright. It took a minute. As a Chicago guy, looking at what we went through with the Bulls, for a perfect example, couldn't get over the hump in 88, 89 with Boston, then couldn't get over the hump with the Pistons, and then learn how to win, in that 90, 91 time period when we put that first ring up, and then we never looked back. But Michael also had to change his game, change the way the game was played. But now you fast forward, the argument is, okay, if Jordan played today's game, what would he do? I said average 60 because you couldn't put your hands on him.
Exactly.
Back in the day, you could ride a guy down the court with his forearm. And if you remember any of the guys that's listening to this podcast, sports related, if you remember Magic Johnson, he was a 6'9" guy that basically bagged you up down the whole court. If he wasn't running in transition, he was bagging you down the court, and you weren't going to steal it because he had a nice spin move, and then his eyes always stayed up. And I think what you've seen today's game, it kind of changed. The take was Tom Thibodeau, for example, when he was with the Bulls, and Derrick Rose got hurt, right? A couple other players got hurt. Thibodeau goes to New York. A couple of his earlier players got hurt because he's so defensive minded that the talk was he ran his players into the ground. Yeah. Now he changed his way he did it this year, and now look at them. They're running Boston off the court. They headed to the Eastern Coast Finals. And in the funny part about these finals, John, it's about to be two teams that no one would have thought that would have been there. Boston,
New York and Indiana.
New York and Indiana.
Absolutely.
And, that was not on the east side of the house. Nobody was thinking about that.
No, and 1 and 2. We think about the 1 and 2. Cavs and Celtics.
Yeah. And I wish I was like the brother they said just went to Vegas and got $800,000, hit $1,000 on that first series. He put $1,000 down on all 4 underdogs winning game 1, and they did, which was incredible.
Yeah.
But it to me, the NBA championship right now, what's going on, almost remind me of like looking at the college NCAA, right?
Mhm.
Because you're always rooting for the underdogs to do great,
Yeah.
even though you know you got the big dragon slayer who can probably win the game.
Yeah. Yeah. This series, this basketball postseason has definitely been interesting with Indiana coming up, New York coming up. Definitely not expecting those two franchises to go as far as they've gone. And then when you mention New York, you talk about Thibodeau and some of the defense that he had in the past. Just 2 years ago they were talking about him may not even be in the league not being in the league,
Right,
being a coach anymore because players were like, "Look, you wearing us down. We can't make it
right.
beyond this point in the postseason because we worn out." And he's changed that defensive philosophy, has got them boys playing. Um, you've coached basketball at all levels, from youth to the college ranks. As the sport has continued to grow year after year, how do you think that the rapid growth of the sport has impacted the talent pool of basketball players across the country?
I mean, that's a great question. I just talked to somebody about this exact question the other day. When I started AAU, man, I'm deep. I'm moved from Chicago. I'm in Nashville, 23 years deep on the AAU side of the house. Know a lot of the guys throwing the EYBL, Adidas, Under Armour tournaments. Invite me out. Johnny, this is the first time in 23 summers, man, that I'm not doing an AAU program. And the guys running the events are calling me. They can't believe it because they're like, "Hey, man, where y'all playing tomorrow?" I'm like, "I'm at home."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Man, I wish I could take off." And I plan to get back in, but I couldn't. I think what's happened over the years in terms of it being watered down is just simply when I started, and I give you a perfect example. When I started in 2002, 2003, around the Nashville area, there was about 4 AAU teams,
Mhm.
about 4, 5 at the most, but about 4 that was inside the city. And games on the weekend, Johnny, were packed. I mean, AAU games on Saturdays was just packed, if not more than high school games during the year, because teams that were coming from out of town, from Memphis and Nashville, Atlanta, everyone had to converge in the same location, and a game is going to go after another game, and so then the gym gets piled up, and all of a sudden you look up and you got 4, 5, 6,000 people, man, at a summer high school game, which was nuts. It is now 20. This is my 20th anniversary this year, man. I won my first national championship in 2005. And I love
AAU?
that team to death with Seller AAU.
Oh,
And then I
okay.
won another in 2011. And to remain probably one of the only coaches in Tennessee, not Tennessee, but in the Nashville area. At that time, my boy, frat brother, Cap Alpha Psi brother, Penny Hardaway in Memphis was going on with his crew doing his thing.
Yeah.
And to this very day, right now, Johnny, if you are in Orlando, Florida area, and go down to the AAU headquarters, I am on the Hall of Fame, man, with that 2005 class. I was one of the only coaches in the country at that time. We walked into the tournament as a number 4 seed, and I knocked off 3 number 1 seeds to go on to win a national championship game that year.
That's amazing, man. What it goes to show, like you talked about the growth from when you played, and how packed the gyms were in the summertime, 5,000-6,000 people. That was kind of like a high school game for AAU. You talk about there was like 4 or 5 teams, as opposed to nowadays. The AAU circuit is so spread, so broad. I mean, you got every age group from 6 to 20 playing AAU basketball, and there are teams everywhere. And I believe, and my son plays AAU basketball. He's been playing for the last 2 or 3 years. But I realized that there's a difference in the AAU basketball that I grew up knowing, even though I didn't participate and play in it. But I grew up, I watched people. I have friends and cousins that played AAU basketball. There's a difference. There weren't that many teams, and the teams that were there were very talented, stacked. You only had the best kids. You had to try out. There wasn't no pay any money, and you could just be on this squad. Like if you didn't make the cut, you didn't make the cut. There's 1 or 2 teams in the city, and there's maybe 15, 20 spots. That's it. You know.
Right, right. And let me tell you what's happening with that. So I'm going to take that one step further. So what's happening with that now, Johnny, is exactly what you said. You got kids that come up to me, Coach Tony, man, we won a championship. What? You don't even play on your own high school team.
Yeah.
You got kids that don't even play high school ball, talking about they just won a championship in the summer. So what's happening is it's watered itself down quite a bit because of everyone's playing and not specific guys. Now, here's what they are trying to do in the basketball arena because of the change in the NIL and what's going on at the college side of the house. You now have, Johnny, because of the way recruiting is being done with the portal and everything is kind of making some move. And I know we're going to talk NIL later, but you got the situation where Nike on the EYBL, Adidas with the Gauntlet, Under Armour with the UA circuit. Now Puma has just started a Puma circuit. Now what you're starting to see is the shoe brands are getting involved with the circuit, and a lot of the pro guys are coming back now. Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Carlos Boozer. I can go on, who are got these teams. And what you're seeing is that these guys are coming back. They're not sending their kids to public schools no more. They're not sending these kids to the regular school. They've created their own national thing. If you notice during basketball season, you have the public league, the Catholic League, and what they do with their state tournaments. And then you now have what they call the National Basketball Schools, which is the NFHS. And they run all these tournaments. Those are usually your private schools or you're usually your post-grad schools or whatever. And these guys have got their own separated tournament. I was watching this year, the NCAA tournament finished the first week of April, and here it is. They're just now running the Chipotle national tournament for high school, and like the week before, when regular high school was done a month ago. You know what I mean? So that's what you're seeing the change, and they're trying to get their hands around it because Nike and the shoe companies know that they've run this. And now I keep telling these kids, the new kids, if you're trying to get into college, it's difficult because the portal is there. And if you're going to do it, it's probably going to be one of these kids that's ranked on ESPN or Rivals.com, top 150. If you're not on that top 150 list, do something else.
Yeah. These days, because of the watered down pool, there's so many basketball players coming out, and all of them have this dream to hoop. And it's a worthy dream, it's a worthy goal, and not to take anything away from any individual, any male or female young kid who wants to make it to the next level. But there's only so many spots at the top, and there's only so many spots on a high school team. There's only so many spots on the middle school team, which I think is why AAU has exploded the way it has, but as well as also watered it down,
Yep.
All right. Switching gears just a little bit. Let's talk about you growing up as a young hooper, coming up and surviving the streets of Chicago. Just tell us a little bit about your experience coming up in Chicago playing hoop.
Man, I came up with the best class of ball players in the nation. Love you, New York. Love you, LA. But Chicago's going to give it to you. My class, Tim Hardaway, Kendall Gill, Marcus Liberty, Nick Anderson, Randy Brown, Reggie Jordan. I can go down the list. Kenny Miller, Babu, Laurent Crawford. I can keep going down there. The list is crazy. We just talked about that the other day when I had my guest on a pull-up the other day with Coach Jordan. She's a graduate of Simeon High School, 97, about a decade after me. I came out of Morgan Park High School. Obviously, if you know about the city of Chicago now, Morgan Park, we put up plenty of players in the league, putting up plenty of banners around the house. And we've been doing it for quite some time. But the difference was, at that time, I would come home, families in Alabama, other families in New York. So I kind of had that little of both. Come down south, had the family in New York, go get the gritty, grimy, and then I'm back to Chicago playing ball. And at that time, we didn't have AAU. We played for Fellowship of Christian Athletes. The FCA was big back in the day. Also, we would just simply play Southside Chicago versus Westside, baby. That was the tournament. And our high school coaches literally were our coaches. It wasn't we got Coach Johnny that coaches like AAU now. Our high school coaches coached. They coached during the season, and then you usually had your team that you had, you pretty much stayed with your high school team.
Mm-hmm.
And Chicago created this thing back in the days called the Grade 8 tournament. So how this tournament worked, Johnny, was crazy. So if you look at the Grade 8, Grade 8, it was looped around Lake Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
You had Milwaukee to the north, Chicago to the south, Indiana Central, and then you had Detroit, Michigan to the east. And what we would do is that in the summer times, Chicago would have the west side versus the south side. The two winners on both of that in the summer would make it to the summer championship game, would represent the city of Chicago. Milwaukee had the same. Indiana had the same. Well, basically, Indiana was basically Naptown and GI. We already know.
Mm-hmm.
And then Detroit. Then we would meet, and then everyone's team would get placed in the opposite side of the bracket, and then whoever win would hold the trophy. So imagine me in Chicago, man, and we win. We talking trash to Milwaukee. We talking trash to the D. We talking trash to GI now, because we got that trophy. And you can talk all you want, but you ain't going to get it back to next year if you win, because the talent kept coming up. And then inside of the city of Chicago, man, it was rough because our games was outside. We played in the park districts on the metal backboard with chain nets, baby, that you walk on any given. If you were in the city of Chicago on the south side playing at King or Cole Park on 79th Street, or playing down on 31st Street Beach, or going to the west side of 10th Park, or playing in the Ada Park on the south side of Parnell Park, those were parks that if you were a ball player, you knew where the ball players were playing at. Mm-hmm. And we had college coaches, Johnny, come in the city of Chicago, and they weren't meeting us at an AAU event. Some of these college coaches was meeting us at some of the top name parks in the city. We'll pull a chair out, jump in the stands, so like you would see in New York at the Rucker. And we would have our summer camps, like we would do like ABCD camp is what we call it. And those camps was held outside. It could be 15, 20, 100 kids all over the nation. And during the time I was in high school, the best basketball player in the nation played and unfortunately was killed. And that's none other than Ben Wilson. Mm-hmm. And Ben Wilson was our Michael Jordan at the time. He was 6'9", could do everything. He was the next coming of Magic Johnson. And if things would have projected the way they would have projected, we may not would have had Scottie Pippen, because Ben was coming out in 84, 85. At the time, we had just drafted Jordan to the Bulls. You're looking at, we would have been probably winning rings early on, because Chicago was that nasty. To date myself a little bit, the three-point shooting line came out in my class of 86. That's when the three-point line came out for high school basketball at that time in college ball. And it was crazy. We didn't know how to shoot the three, man. Yeah. But we know, you come to Chicago, New York, we're going to play D, lock you down, and get to the rack. Mm-hmm. And then that's what it was all about. So when I started to coach AAU, even though I got to Tennessee, I still had that Chicago blood running. That's how I coached my teams. And you go ask my AAU guys that played with me on both my national championship. Man, Johnny, I had a hell of a run. I had 2 national championships, 2 Final Four appearances, 6 Final Elite 8, and 3 Sweet 16s through the whole year. 23 years in the program, placed over 500 more kids at the next level, man, and it's been great. And these I got kids that's playing for me that's coaching right now at Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Ford High School here in Nashville, internationally, and it's been great, man. It's been a good run.
I mean, you've been making a big impact in the basketball. I can tell by just what you mentioned, the amount of teams you've coached. And then, coming out of Chicago, so many great names. You're right. Like, I'm not from Chicago, but I'm familiar with the greatness that comes out of Chicago in terms of basketball. I have family my ex-wife is from Chicago. She went to Morgan Park High School. So I'm familiar with, the greatness that is Morgan Park when it comes to sports, particularly basketball. Spent some time out there on the south side of Chicago. So I'm familiar with, a little bit with life out there, and it can be challenging, just surviving. And basketball, I'm sure, provided a haven and an avenue for a young kid like yourself and many others, to have a place to go and stay out of the streets, and at the same time, do something that's in line with what they want to do for their future.
Yeah, I'm telling you talking about, man, Johnny, I knew cats, man, that were bang. outside, gang bang outside, that we would lock the school down and come in the gym and give you 30.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I knew cats
That's how it
pull
was.
up on the park and just finished drinking a 40 and step on the court and give you 20.
Yeah.
And it was a safe haven, man, in the situation because, one of my best friend got shot and killed. You were talking about that at my freshman year, 15 years old. People talking about how schools are nowadays. We had metal detectors in Chicago back in the 80s, man, for real, coming through the school. Police department be at the door checking us. Morgan Park, where, like you said, on the south side, our school sat right next to a police department, matter of fact. But we had a playground, and it was real gangsters back in the day. These guys knew who the ball players were. They went out shooting and doing all this crazy crap. Matter of fact, a lot of the brothers that I knew came up at that time. We were watching. They were throwing them hands. They wasn't shooting and pulling up, doing all this there. You see guys literally have gang fights, and then 2 hours later, you see them in class with a knife on their head.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Now they wouldn't come back from that because don't nobody do that no more. Exactly. And some of those same guys would be in basketball practice with you, Johnny, at 3:30 that afternoon in practice, man.
Well, because ball is life at that point. You know what I mean? Ball becomes life. And I heard about Ben Wilson. I worked with a guy who he grew up playing basketball in Chicago. Big dude named Kenny. You might know him. I don't know Kenny's last name. But he grew up playing ball in Chicago. He talked to me about Ben Wilson. He talked about that after I think Ben Wilson got murdered, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that may have been my classmate. You talking about Kenny Miller, big, tall, 6'9" guy?
Tall, yeah, dark skin, dark.
Yeah,
probably
that was my post player. I was his point guard.
Okay,
Kenny played.
Yeah,
he played with me at
down here in Nashville. Yeah, he runs a security company. You know Kenny?
That's my guy. Me and Kenny like that. I've been with Kenny since the 6th and 7th grade, man.
That's dope.
So me and him, that's who Kenny. Let me tell you a quick story about Kenny. During our heyday at Morgan Park, Kenny broke 12 backboards his senior year. And so
I thought he was lying.
Yeah, I'm talking.
I thought he was lying. He didn't tell me 12, but he told me he broke some.
Yeah, he broke about 10 to 12 basketball, matter of fact. And at that time, I was shifty. So I was coming down, we had a set play, throwing pick and roll. And we played high school by the name of Harlem High School. And we walked into the school one day. And remember, Johnny, now I got to give you guys this layout. We're talking about the city of Chicago like New York. So our games were at 3:30 in the afternoon. JV, we tip off at 4:30 because the violence in Chicago during the 80s, Chicago was one of the murder capitals of the world, of the country at that time in 80 because of Cabrini Green, the low end and State Street, 79 blocks of housing projects. So imagine 79 blocks of housing projects in Nashville, it would swallow this city up, okay? And we're talking about 13-story buildings that set off each other just like in New York if you was up in Brooklyn and Queens. So we go to this high school to play. We walk into the school. Kenny done broke so many damn backboards, man. They tell us, if you break a backboard, we fight today. So we had a little play. Kenny tapped me on my shoulder. Hey, Tony, come down. Hey, as you go through it, throw it up. You know what we're going to do. I don't think we was 3 minutes into the game. And I come down, these dudes come out of the stands, and, man, we fist-cuffing right on the floor. So one dude didn't jump in.
They wasn't playing.
And this how crazy Chicago was. One guy didn't jump in. I mean, Coach, he doing this thing too. We get on the bus, get ready to go back to Morgan Park. Coach stopped at the end of the block, and the kid that didn't jump in, he put him off the bus. We were like, Coach, you can't do that, man. Look where he's at. Hey, man, Coach didn't care. That was some real coaches, man. Today, he lost his job. He's been in a lawsuit, all type of stuff.
Heck yeah.
Hey, that's the kind of ball.
Name would have been all over the media.
Yeah.
Totally different basketball culture these days. Totally different basketball culture in Chicago. Totally different basketball culture in that part of Chicago specifically. They even Kenny even mentioned that after Ben Wilson got killed, that different parts of the city and different gangs came together and said, look, all of the athletes, if you're an athlete, they can't be touched. They off limits.
Yeah, off limits. Man, we used to go to parties.
We're not doing that anymore.
We would have high school parties, man. It was just, in freshman year, I went to this school named Mendel. And I'm big into house music. I'm a big house music guy, by the way. You ever do the podcast? I love to jump on the house music podcast, show you some things. But it was crazy because we would go to parties together, man. Us, Ben Wilson, Nick Anderson, Kendall, all of them, man. Sometimes we end up all at the same party, whether you're at the house, warehouse, the candy store, all, Slick Rick's, everything that was in the city. And you always knew because you're going to look on the side and all the ball players were tall. We all be in one corner together, all be kicking it, hanging out. So like you said, man, it was amazing. But the close-knit community in Chicago basketball, tough. We would take that crew, anybody in the city of Chicago, play anybody in the country at that time. Not scared of nobody. Because we couldn't shoot, but we're going to break you down and D you up and lock you out. That's one thing that the boys were going to do.
Chicago, definitely a tough region for hoop, man. No doubt. Undeniable. Man, you got a lot of basketball experience. But when did you, and playing a lot, you talked a lot about playing just now. When did you realize you had a passion for coaching basketball? And how were you able to juggle coaching both the men's and women's basketball team at Fisk University for 9 years?
Man, Johnny, it was funny, man. I got into, I'm really upset at myself because when I came out of school and played ball, when those season came back, had a chance to jump in right away. I'm like, man, I'm not going to take $30,000, $30,000 when my boy was giving me a job to make 50 in a company car. I'm like, you do the math, you know what I mean? So I went into sales. And when I relocated and got to Nashville, a kid whose dad played ball at Pepperdine was here in Nashville. We were playing pickup ball. We was in the men's league one day, saw me play. He said, man, you good. You ever thought about training kids? I never did. He said, man, I'd love to have you train my son or at least work with him. So I started doing it, and the kid got good. And all of a sudden, the kid went from off the bench to starting, and then he brought another kid and another kid. Next thing you know, I got 3 or 4 kids I'm training. And then all of a sudden, he had a tie-in to a middle school that needed a coach. And then he's like, man, you training, I can see the difference you're making in my son. Man, why don't you give coaching a try? I was like, John, I'm like, man, I'm not coaching, man. And he said, man, we really need a coach. I jumped in the year at the middle school. They'd only won like 3 or 4 games. The year I took over, and we went to the district championship. And it just went from there. The fifth situation was funny. So I pride everything to Coach RYD Tweet, and congratulations on a state championship run this year at Hillsborough High School here in Nashville. Hell of a guy, hell of a coach. He brought me into Ravenwood High School in 2002, 2003 when Ravenwood opened up, which is the same year, ironically, I started the AAU program. And he and I coached together, took a team off the map, took him to state, and then he moved on to Hillsborough. So I walked into Fisk University. I had a lot of guys now ask me about, Coach, how do I get into that part of the game? I just told them my story. Said, I walked into Fisk and went right up to Coach Head. Coach Head was AD at that time, and bless his heart. And I said, man, I would love to help out in the program. Now, you got to know, Johnny, I'm coming from Chicago. So I really don't know about this HBCU thing. You know what I'm saying? I heard about Fisk and all them, but only way I knew about it, my homeboy went to school with me in Chicago, went to TSU. So I would come down and kick it on homecoming. They would party with Fisk back in the day. Because remember, back in the day, walk up Jefferson Street like it wasn't nothing. Yeah, exactly. And so can't do it now, right? So when I got a chance to get over there, I walked in the gym. This is what I say, your talents and what you say out of your mouth has got to match. Coach Head said, do you have some time? I said, sure I do. He said, I'll be right back. 15 minutes later, he walks in the gym with 3 of their ball players and gives me a basketball and 2 chairs. And I'm like, what's up with this? He said, well, you said you want to coach. Work these guys out. And man, I said, all right. Took all my stuff, put him on the floor, ran him through some drills off the chair, jumping drills, shooting drills, sprinting drills, you name it. Man, the boys looked, they were wore out, 45 minutes deep. He told me, he said, man, I appreciate you. We'll be in touch. I left the gym. I don't think, Johnny, I was down on Charlotte Pike yet. And he called me and said, hey, man.
5 minutes or less.
Yeah, I was, like 6, 7 minutes away from school. He said, hey, man.
For those of y'all watching.
He said, hey, man.
He wasn't that far away from the school before he got a phone call. What he trying to say?
Yeah, it is like my boys told me that they worked out with people and they play on this team for me at Fisk, but they've never had a workout like that in their life. I'd love for you to come on board and be my assistant coach. And he introduced me to Coach Robert Moore, which is my entire mentor. Coach Moore brought me on with the men. He loved the ideas I had, new blood, new things I was doing, drills and things of that nature. And he pretty much sit down and let me do everything. The only thing he did is when game time, he stood up as the coach, but I ran everything. At that point, Johnny, it was great because it was then giving me my foundation for training guys at the next level. 2 or 3 years deep in the FIS, our women's basketball program was struggling, and I was asked to move over, help with the women. Now, I wasn't going to do it, but my guy, one of my homeboys, is at the corporate office for the NCAA in Indianapolis. And we were talking, and I said, I got a son that's coming up. How can I, balance the two things out? And he said, well, Tony, if you coach college basketball men, and your son gets to high school, you can't touch him because of violations of possibly illegal recruiting. I'm like, oh, Rob. He said, is there any way for you to jump on the women's side of the house? I go, yeah. He said, if I were you, I would jump on the women's side of the house, and then the NCAA don't give a damn about what you do. And the rest was history. I jumped over. 2 years later, I ended up putting up the best record at Fisk University behind Teresa Phillips. If anybody know who that is, she ended up going on to be the AD at Tennessee State and became the first African-American woman to coach a Division men's basketball program. And it just went from there, man. And then since that time, I stuck with the women's program and been able to run my boys AAU program, one of the largest ones in the city, for over 2 decades.
Tony, man, I'm learning that you have a very deep basketball legacy that spans not just in Chicago, but here in Nashville. I didn't know. I know you were a coach. I know you coached basketball, St. Cecilia. I had to learn that you were the Fisk basketball coach for 9 years, and now learning how you got that role and sticking with it and championships, and then the depth of it, coaching Teresa Phillips. I knew Teresa went to Fisk. I knew Teresa Phillips was an AD for TSU. I know Teresa Phillips was the men's basketball coach for TSU. I didn't know you coached her though. Man, I'm just honored to have you on the podcast and to know this new knowledge and new information. And what I found interesting about what you said, and this is for the viewing audience, this is why this show is important, Revisit Your Dreams. When Coach Tony decided to go talk to the basketball coach about the role and about, getting that role, taking it on full time, that was him, an extension of his dreams of basketball from a coaching standpoint, from a former player standpoint, not being in a position of playing at that stage of his life, but still being able to extend his basketball life in terms of giving it back in coaching. And that's what this show is about, is just to encourage people that, just because you become a certain age, it doesn't mean that your dreams have to die. You may have to pivot a little bit. You may have to find your way in a different, in a different format. You may have to use some different resources, but the dreams don't have to die. And this Coach Tony is in the perfect example of continuing on the dream, even when the actual physical skill of playing the sport or doing the actual function may not be there anymore. Fun question for you, man. Would you have traded Luca?
Well, I'm putting it like this: is hindsight's 2020, as they say, and they getting was what they about to get the flagship. Then the answer would be yes. Mm-hmm. If we knew that you would be in a position to trade a person like Luke at 25, 26, who is on his way to be a Hall of Famer, obviously, and know that behind that, I would then turn around and get the luck of the draw to get the number 1 pick in the 25, 26 draft to be able to bring in Cooper Flagg, who was going to go back to Duke because he really didn't want to go to a team that he was going to struggle to make it back. And now I get to go to Dallas and play alongside of my homeboy from the Chi, Tim Hardaway Jr.'s kid. Come on, man. You can't script that. And so the answer would be if I knew that was. Now, realistically, no. I think that looking what Dallas did, they had to make a trade if they were going to rebuild the foundation of the Mavericks and do it quickly. I think that what they thought about was that if we keep Luca, what kind of pieces could we put around him to make him better? And the question then becomes, what's the time frame, right? Because we can put the pieces around him with the time frame of, are we going to get these pieces back quickly enough that if we keep him and don't win, then when is Luca going to request to get out? Let's rewind that tape. Go back to KG, was one of the last people to be out of high school draft, to be not even one and done, but high school to the league. And if you remember, and everyone watching the podcast, he had the opportunity to take advantage of what they call the Larry Bird rule. And if you didn't know that, maybe people didn't know what the Larry Bird rule was before they got rid of it. Larry Bird came out with a rule when Kevin Garnett got drafted, said that if a franchise is dumb enough to offer you X amount of dollars, you should be dumb enough to take it. And so how it came out to be, Minnesota drafted KG and offered them $130 million. The franchise wasn't worth $130 million back in the 90s, right? And so they had to build up to that. But the way they thought, we'll get some rings, we'll get this and that. KG stays with them, 13 years, gets his contract and goes to Boston and wins his rings. So
he gonna get it's a win-win for KG.
Correct. I fulfilled my contract, so you can't say I didn't. I gave you everything I could, but I couldn't win it. Tried to put a team together, and now I moved on and got me some teams with the big three, right, with Paul Pierce and Ray. So now you ask Dallas. Now Dallas clean house. Now the question is, can you get Anthony Davis back healthy? Because he's got a few more years in him, right? We know that. Can you get him back healthy? Can you continue to give Tim Hardaway Jr. the ball? Because Tim played great this year. I wish I'd have seen that, but it had time for him to grow. He's grown into that contract and grown into where he's going to be. And now you're bringing in a Cooper Flag. Now the question is, can you get Cooper in quick enough and then go find a shooter? Because they need a shooter. Because Cooper, depending on where they play him, I'm thinking they're going to probably play him in a 3-4 slot and whatnot. But can you get – now, Kyrie is still down there. So now you got the pieces. You got Kyrie at the ball, Cooper off the wing, Hardaway Jr. spotting up, Anthony Davis below, still got Derek Lively. So to me, they rebuilt that quick, and they will be a playoff contending team next year.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure they still have – I know they have P.J. Washington is in the spot in the starting role. I think Hardaway Jr. is now on – I think he's on the Pistons now. Detroit, if I'm not mistaken, this playoff series, because didn't he get fouled? I think he got fouled at the end of the game, and they didn't call the foul shot. They didn't call the foul on Josh Hart when they were playing. Oh,
yeah. He got traded. He got traded. Yeah, at the end of the season, he got traded to the Pistons, right.
Yeah, he got traded at the end of the season, but he was there majority of the season before that trade. Yeah. But yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, and I think just my personal opinion, I probably, considering the talent of Luca, but also considering his potential health and the amount of money that we're going to be paying him coming up, and the need to grow, like you said, evaluating would I be able to grow and get to where I need to with Luca and the way the team is structured after I pay him $350 million. If not, maybe I'll take my chances in doing something different. But, nobody could have predicted them getting this number one pick, man, especially with a 1.8%.
Exactly. Now, here's a question back to you on that, if that's the case then. So the question back on the table that I asked the other night was a tough question. I can't get one. So now you trade him to L.A., what difference is it going to make? Because LeBron's on the way out the door. We know that. And even if LeBron comes back for a 21st season, the only person I've seen come back for his 21st season and kill it is who?
LeBron himself?
Nope. No, because LeBron will be coming up on his 21st season. Who is a pro?
Who played 20? Who played 21? I don't know, and killed it. Vince Carter?
Nope.
I'm trying to think who played that long.
Jamal Crawford.
And was killing it.
Jamal Crawford is the only person.
I didn't know he played 21.
Yep, and dropped 50 on 3 different teams he played for. And
Jamal Crawford could drop 50 today.
Correct. So the question is, if Luca's now in L.A., right, we know we got a couple of pieces around him. Ryan Connect, when he started to play like he did at Tennessee, I think it's still, he's growing into that piece. I think he's going to be good. To me, he's like a baby Luca, to tell the truth, but he can shoot it, and can defend. But then you got to look at the pieces of what JJ Redick is really trying to do. And do they use LeBron this year? Maybe as a quasi player coach. He's still there, but he's really playing, but he's in a more of a coaching role. Do little Bronny, does he finally get a chance to get out of the G League and step into the limelights of the NBA? And does he do something? And that's the question. So the question is, how many years is it going to take you with Luca and putting this together to try to rebuild LA? We know we got the brand, right? We know LA all about Showtime because it's always 4 brands. You really got big brands. Always going to have a Boston brand, right? We'll always have a Philly brand because these are back in the day teams. We'll always have an LA brand. We'll definitely have a Bulls brand. And, and I think the Detroit Pistons are going to always keep a brand.
Detroit and now New York. Now
And,
New York's
and my
coming
bad.
back.
And the Knicks. Knicks is one of the oldest brands. And I think they got a good shot. So the question is, can you get Luca what he needs in LA since you made that trade, Rob Pelinka?
Yeah, that's going to be the challenge. And, I think another challenge is what we'll find out is how bad do people actually want to play with Luca?
Correct.
If Luca stays in LA and LeBron's no longer on the team, we're going to be able to see how bad people want to play with him because LA is a destination. They typically have bigger pockets, and Luca's there.
Right.
But who wants to play there with him?
Exactly.
That's going to be interesting to find out over the next couple of seasons.
And they started this stuff a few years ago, right, about the big 3. And, I was watching all the smoke. And I love the interview they did with Magic Johnson. And they came and did one with Craig Hodges and all that. And they asked Magic a question about, as they say, the big 3 now. No one wanted to play back in the day with Jordan. No one wanted to play with Magic or Bird. They wanted to play against each other. And that's why I got the respect for those guys in the old days because I knew Mike was at home. I knew Bird was in Boston, knew Magic was in LA, Isaiah was up the street in Detroit, and those guys wanted to get it. Then Reggie came in the league, killing them down in Naptown. So these guys wanted to get at each other. They could have probably, you don't think that at some point in the career, Magic could have got Pat Riley them to buy Bird and Jordan and put them on the team? Yeah, that could happen. But what would it have been for the league and the brand? Probably wouldn't have done anything.
Yeah.
It made more room for LA, but I think I was glad the way it's it done. So now the question is, now these teams everyone wants a big 3. The problem is every year that you recycle the NBA, because it's getting younger, you once again thank this NIL because now these kids are staying in school. So now hopefully the NBA average age a few years ago, like I think 19 and a half, 20 years old. Now I think it'll get back to that 23, 24, 25. It was crazy when a few years ago that they were talking to John Morant in Memphis, and the oldest guy in the locker room was 22. That ain't no veteran.
Exactly. If you're a rookie coming up, who do you have to look up to on the team? Especially when, no disrespect, but John Morant is the leader of your team. Who do you have to look up to?
Correct. And that's why these NBA teams are going back, and that's why these old guys that are playing still in their 15, 20, 16, 17, 18, 19 years, they're still valuable for $300,000, $1 million, $2 million, if it is nothing else but to give some sense of directions in this locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And I enjoy when I see some veterans, still on the staff, on the squad, on the roster. That they probably not getting a lot of playing time, but you also know that they're making an impact in that locker room. You see them talking to the players when they're coming off the court during timeouts and stuff like that. One person I noticed, like PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker has been on the Knicks the entire season. You haven't seen him. I don't think he might have played a whole game, all season. But his veteran presence is there, and PJ Tucker, as we know, defensively is a dog.
Yes.
And the Knicks are playing out of their minds defensively right now.
Yes.
So he got something to do with that,
Yep.
Your podcast, the Pull Up Podcast, has featured some notable guests, coaches, as well as former and current athletes. You recently hosted an episode featuring LaVar Ball, father of LaMelo, Lonzo, and LiAngelo. What does it mean to you to be able to feature such guests? And what are some of the more memorable episodes you've produced and released?
Man, I tell you, man, the Pull Up Podcast shows for those that's going on Monday nights, 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And you have to put that word show behind because there's a Pull Up Podcast. We are the Pull Up Podcast show. To fall into the laps of the podcast world, Johnny, and to make that happen, man, was one thing of disbelief because I couldn't believe it was happening. But then once I stepped into the lights, man, I was just in my light. I was just in my lane. And the guests that I try to have on, I want them to be like me, man. We're just going to kick a conversation, man. I'm not trying to bring you on and show you up or any of that. So it's about relationships, right? Knowing the right people. My guy, Travis McAveen, shout out to him, runs a basketball camp where he takes a lot of the players throughout the country down to the Mexican tour to do a Mexico tour. And I'll go down with him, coaching, seeing about him, seeing kids down there, the whole 9 yards, and we stay connected. And so one day I had Coach on the podcast. We were doing some things before last year. I sent one of my ball players who ended up being MVP of the Caribbean tournament a year and a half ago. And he was like, hey, Tony, man, I'm connecting with LaVar Ball and these guys coming up with Big Baller Brand. And I was joking with him, Johnny. I said, man, look, you get with the Big Baller Brand, man, they need to be on my podcast because me and LaVar, I think, would not only hit it off, we kind of like in the same bucket, man. We can kick it. So he sets the meeting up, man, and LaVar comes on, and we live. No takes. One shot. Get it right. And right off the bat, we start tripping. He comes out, and I say, hey, man, you from Compton, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm from Compton, this and that. I said, that's cool, but we ain't got to worry about all this BS because I'm from the Shy, man, so we're going to keep this 100 tonight. And he's like, man, I like you already. And so we just, man, he started talking about at that night he was cooking cornbread. So I'm like, who does a podcast show? You got to tell me to hold on so you can go get your cornbread. But it was so hilarious the way we did it. And on that show, if those hadn't had an opportunity, if you go to YouTube, type in the Pull Up Podcast show, LaVar Ball, please watch that episode. But that show, he released some new details on what he's doing with the brand that he hadn't talked to Stephen A. Smith, ESPN, CNN, Fox, nobody. So I felt very special. He told me about that he's rebranding the brand. Talked about Leandro just getting his new record deal with Def Jam. Talked about what both the boys are doing in basketball related and all that and how they're coming back with the brand. And the Big Baller Brand not only is coming back as a brand, but they're also going to come with a retail store and also going to come with a basketball circuit next year. And so it was just phenomenal. And he ended up giving me a big compliment just to let me know that, you know, he appreciated the fact of the matter that I was able to, you know, bring him on the show, talk to him about him and how he put the brand together and everything. I wasn't there trying to score no points. I wasn't there trying to bring up lies and bring up accusations and make it an argumentative type of situation. And because of that, man, we linked up and did some good things. He's sending me some Big Baller Brand gear that I'm going to be wearing around Nashville when you see me next time, man. And of course, I laid the opportunity out that down the road, he's going to come back on the show and tell me some bigger things he's doing with the brand, man. And because of that, man, I started getting other people, man. One of my funniest shows that I think that I had was with my boy Blaine Bishop from Indianapolis, because Blaine kept it 100. Football player. Yeah. Chris Johnson from the Titans came on. We were wilding and tripping out and joking as well, man. And then the women I've had on, Rusha Brown and Sylvia Crawley-Spine. Sylvia is doing some big things with the Women's Basketball League, and we kept it just 100. And then my girl, who is now over a brand new conference, which that's a great visit for you to get on your podcast, is Kiki Barnes, who runs the new HBCU athletic division, which also ran the GCAC, which Fitz was a part of. And me and Kiki had a great time because I knew her for so many years. And I remember she gave me shots and opportunity to do some things, Johnny. So to see her grow in that space and then become the first African-American female athletic director, that was a great meeting about this and that, man. So right now, you know, if you guys listening to this podcast today with us, if you got an opportunity whether you're an athlete or not, or you're in that sports space, you want to find out how to come on the Pull Up Podcast Show and talk to me, reach out to Johnny or reach out to me on Instagram at the Pull Up Podcast Show.
Absolutely, man. I love the podcast, the Pull Up Podcast Show, and I appreciate you identifying it and making that designation that it is actually a show. It's not just a podcast. So that's very particular, and I appreciate that. Please follow Coach Tony. Please go subscribe to the Pull Up Podcast Show. If you love basketball, you're going to be very entertained every time he comes on. You see his personality now. He's just like this, even more so on the show because he's in control. So it's loose, it's light, it's fun, it's informative, it's entertaining, and he always has some very good experienced guests on his show. So go support that. Check him out. What are your thoughts on the impact? You've been mentioning NIL a few times over the course of this conversation, but what are your thoughts on the impact that the new NIL landscape is having on the sports at the high school level? And have you seen NIL opportunities be presented to any high school athletes that you've been associated with or have coached?
So, this is a great question because I'm in that lane right now. I'm finishing up. Matter of fact, I hadn't told you, you and I hadn't had a chance to talk, but I'm getting my master's degree right now in an NIL sports management program. And for those of you that's looking at this right here, this is a sports company right here, the RYD NIL. So if you want to take a look at that, go out to www.therizdenil.com. Well, we work with brands and athletes, Johnny, and that's funny you talk to us about that because you can, we talk to you on both hands, right? Because in life, we know that at one point we've come to a fork in the road, right? There's a fork to the left, to the right, or middle. Someone told me this, Johnny, and it was very important. I laughed about it because I never looked at it this way. When you get to a fork in the road, there's only 5 things you can do. You know what those are?
I don't know the 5.
So when you get to a fork in the road, you can go to the right by yourself. 1, you can go to the left by yourself. 2, you can go to the right with somebody, or you can go to the left with somebody, or you can stay at that fork and stay stagnant. But whatever you choose, you got to finish that destination. I was like, wow. It's amazing. So when you look at the NIL and what's been going on, the fork in the road for the NCAA was right before they lost that lawsuit to Tennessee and West Virginia, right? There's talking about that, the Sherman Act, and then when they lost that deal to say that these kids can go back and get compensated for their name, image, and the likeness, which is what the NIL stands for, then they lost total control. So when they lost control of that, in football, which we already know as big as football is at the Power 5, now the Power 4, which I've been preaching, telling everybody for a long time that the Pac-12 was going away. And I'm telling you now, the ACC is next, especially if the teams defect to the SEC and the Big Ten, the way we're looking at it. And what you've seen, Johnny, is the power of money that me and my boy Kenny that you know, and I'm talking about Nick and Kendall and everybody else and Tim Hardaway that played back in the day, which was pocket money or handshake money from boosters under the table. We were getting in trouble. Now it's on top of the table and it's legal. And so what's happening is it's changed the face of the game. Now, the good side of it is changed the face of the game good because you finally get a chance to pay these athletes. And not only that, the biggest beneficiary of that has been women's basketball and women's sports in general, soccer. Now they got women's flag football coming, right? Volleyball is on the rise. But nothing's growing faster than women's basketball. And we've seen that, and thank you very much, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, with their duel that they just had, and it opened up another gate. Thank you, Asia Wilson, for doing what you did back to back to back. Thank you, Team USA, for continuing to put us on the map. More rings with the women than the men's got. So it's opened up a whole different ring of thing. And now that these kids are doing it, the NIL process, Johnny, has now came down to the states. There's a lot of people that don't even know right here in Tennessee, we got NIL for high school kids. I just talked to a parent yesterday. And if you don't know that, if you listen to this podcast, simply Google your state athletic association. Find out if NIL is in your state. And if it is, then you can find out little small ways that your child playing whatever sport he or she is playing can take advantage of it. Now, the disadvantage of it is I am struggling right now as a recruiter with agency placing kids out of high school. I talked to a slew of coaches. I just talked to 3 coaches yesterday at the Division I level. They are not looking at your son. They're not looking at my nephew. They're not looking at these kids anymore, Johnny. So now this ties back in with the right hand on this NIL with the left hand that you and I talked about earlier with AAU. They've got to do something to clean that up because these coaches right now, the word that they tell me all the time, and I'm making 30, 40, 50 calls a day, is why am I going to go back and teach Johnny, a 17-year-old high school kid coming out of Nashville, when I can recruit Tony, a 21, 22, 23-year-old kid who's already, I know, playing at the Division I level, but he's a hardhead. He's not going to listen to no coach, but maybe I may be the one coach to tell him you got a one-shot opportunity. And oh, by the way, I can give you $1 million in your pocket. Mm-hmm. Now, the 2 things that people get misconstrued about that they don't understand, and I'll ask you the question, then I'll explain it. Do you understand the difference between the NIL and the collectives?
I'm not even familiar with what the collectives are.
So you need to be, because your son's coming up, right? He's playing ball. So here's a great lesson for you. What a lot of people don't understand, because they group everything in the collective, no different than they grouped everything under the brand AAU. Remember that? Remember how no matter what basketball it was, everybody was playing AAU. Well, that was not true, AAU. Right? Yeah. It wasn't true. Mm-hmm. So what you got to understand, on the right hand, you got the collectives. The collectives are, you and I are a graduate of X school and university. And now me and you own a big brand, a box office brand that's worth millions, if not billions. And then we decide to go back to our alma mater, put money into that, and support the kids in the football, basketball program. Or we could have our own nephew or niece playing, whatever. Or we could just decide to give it to one player. But that's money that you and I do as a collective, that we decided what we're going to give to that university. And we don't give a damn what the NCAA say, because we're business owners. We can write whatever check we want to write. Okay? Those are the State Farms and the other places that you see Juju Watkins and those young ladies and men are working in. Then you got the NIL, where the new rule came down on the NIL that the NCAA only gave the university, Johnny, $20.5 million. And in that $20.5 million, that money was given to the AD. Now the AD has to decide how that money is going to get distributed throughout the program. Well, me and you already know football is going to be number 1. Men's basketball is going to be number 2. Women's basketball is number 3. Now in that 4th slot, depending on the university, it could be the baseball or volleyball, right? So at the situation that just recently happened, we all know about with the Nico situation at University of Tennessee. What a lot of people don't know is that Nico inked a deal coming out of high school, out of California, to play for UT for $8 million, $2.1 million a year. So he waits out to his freshman season to then want to, I don't know why, act a fool. He wanted to double that NIL money. Well, you got to think about it. I'm glad Josh Heupel did what he did, because Nico was ready to become the first college athlete who was a holdout. Man, Johnny, man, we don't even hear about holdouts in the league, man. I don't know damn college kid holdout.
I'm not trying to do that for college. Yeah.
And so what Heupel was basically saying is that, okay, if we got $20 million in easy numbers and $12 million is football, why am I going to pay you a third of my money, man? And I got to figure out how to pay these other 90 kids. I'm not about to do that. I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. So it was a great precedent that Heupel stood his ground. It was a great precedent that Tennessee did what they did. Now the kid transfers and signs with UCLA for 1.7. So he goes back to California. He loses $500,000 or $600,000, and now you leave the state of Tennessee with no taxes, Johnny, and go to California and get taxed.
California, the highest tax rate in the country.
So that was a bad deal, and that's, again, kids, if you're listening to this, you listen to me today, love your parents, love the people you got in your corner, sit down and think for yourself. Sit down and make those wise decisions. Put somebody financially in your corner that's going to help you make those great decisions that really stand. Because if it's all about the love of the game, the crazy part about it is Johnny Nico was on his way. It wasn't like he was a bad kid. The kid was already making $2 million. I know people that's got master's degree, they made $2 million. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
exactly. In their whole lifetime.
yeah. And so he's on his way in another year or two to probably be a pro quarterback. Now, here's the question for you. Does the kid blackball himself or does he bounce back?
I think he'll bounce back. I think that he has enough talent, and I think that because of the NIL landscape, there's enough money out there that somebody's going to pay him the kind of maybe not the money he's asking for, he's seeking, but somebody is going to see the talent and see a range of dollars that they could say, we'll deal with his lack of loyalty, so to speak, and we'll bring him on and we'll pay him 2.5. We may even give him 3, but it's going to depend a lot on what, to me, in my opinion, on what he does this season. If he has just an average season at UCLA, it's over for him, in my opinion.
Well,
I don't mean over for him for career, but I mean in terms of getting the NIL money in college that he's looking for.
And I'm looking at the bigger picture, and I'm spot on what you say. First of all, you're going to UCLA. You're still in this same conference with Ohio State and Michigan, so you got your work cut out, for one. And we saw how the hell you played in Ohio, right, doing that game for the playoff.
Yeah.
We know you don't like cold weather, so you back to Cali, being a pretty boy. So what I'm looking at is down the road is that maybe did he burn himself? Because if you look and see what the hell they just did to Shedeur Sanders, right? We know that when the league wants to talk, the league can talk. When the owners want to talk, the owners can talk. So here it is. This young man is already setting himself a bad precedent. And now, like you said, if you don't show up and show out, then that junior year better be off the wall.
It better be off the wall. And he is, in my opinion, he's going to have to be consistent, like stay at one spot. If you move again, it'll have to be after you did something big at UCLA.
So I'm going to have you laughing.
If you have 4 success and then move again, I think that's when your NFL draft stock really starts to tank.
I'm going to have you laughing. Everything that you just said is totally in reverse now. I is 100% in reverse. I talk to my agents all the time. Do you know they said if a kid stays at, first of all, before I answer that, do you know how many people was in the portal this year just on football?
I heard it was a lot, but I don't know the number.
49.
I remember. What do you say?
49,000.
Yeah, it was like a big number.
Yeah,
I was like,
49,000.
That's like everybody playing college football.
So basically, what you just said a minute ago actually works in reverse. They say if a kid stays at one location, he or she is only looking to make 1.5 times the money they could. But if they transfer, they can make up to 5 times. So it would behoove Nico to play at UCLA this year and then have a hell of a breakout year and then transfer like to Ohio State or transfer to like the ACC or transfer to what? Look at your boy in Georgia, right? Yeah. He left, he going to Miami for like 20 mil.
It's a wild. You talking about the quarterback?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a wild west out there when it comes to this NIL money because it's only going to get more. It's only going to explode in terms of the amount of kids that are not staying in school, that are going from one school to the next year after year. The money is going to get higher and higher because schools are going to keep trying to be competitive with one another. And, we want that kid, but we know XYZ school is offering them this. All right, we'll offer you this to come here.
Correct. So it is like the rich get richer in regular world, right? Because we know the teams with the big pocketbooks and the big purse and the big bags is Ohio State, Michigan, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, and all that. The only thing I don't like it is what makes me mad this week is when you got somebody like Saban, Coach Saban goes to the 47th, and then tells the 47 that this needs to be regulated. And then he tries to bring down an executive order, which is going to just do nothing but flood the courts because there's going to be a lot of lawsuits up the ass on that if they try to do it. But when you're looking at this whole ramification of things, Johnny, that's why it was put on these books that these kids got it. And what's happening is what I enjoy is that you now, think about it, can send your son to college Tell them to go ahead. I heard the best thing the other day Deion Sanders said. Go to college, young men and women, to make your money. Go to the league to become famous. Oh, man, I put that on thing. So think about what he's saying. With the way that things are set up now, there's no reason for me to leave college. Let's look at Juju Watkins, perfect example. 19 years old, $1.7 million, 895,000 in just regular collectives. Over 1.7 is what her worth is. She's got a State Farm commercial. She became the first female athlete, including first African American, to sign a deal with United Airlines. She's got a deal with Wells Fargo. She's got a deal with a makeup line. And then she signed a deal with a financial company, Johnny, that became the first young lady that she's putting her financial income out online so you can see it, because she wants to teach financial literacy. And at 19 years old, she's already got a stake in Unrivaled Women's Professional Basketball and AAU, Athletes Unlimited. And she's not even in the WNBA, and she already owns 2 pro basketball teams. Now you tell me,
as a college sophomore, junior.
As a college sophomore. She's only a sophomore, and the young girl is already thinking like that. So you don't tell me that, oh, by the way, I didn't mention one more thing about her. She trains with LeBron James' coach, Phil Handy. So you can't tell me that right there. That's sitting on gold. But she's saying, something? I just got injured. It's no telling when this is going to be over. Let me do what I need to do with this paper of mine so I'm good for life. Mm-hmm. And if I don't want to go work for somebody else, go make this money so I can create my own wealth, create my own lane, I can work and do what I want to do when I come out.
Exactly. I think that's with NIL money, and what you mentioned about kids staying in school longer to get the money, and the quote that Deion said, "Stay in school to make your money, go to the league to get famous." Nowadays, those who stay in school and make that money, the ones who are making the actual, like, the bigger money in NIL are also getting famous before they go to the league. Like you just
with
mentioned,
social media.
Juju Watkins, Caitlin Clark, all these guys, Shador Sanders, with social media. Some of these guys, as college freshmen, they have 1 or 2 good games, and all of a sudden, millions of people know their name. They know who they are. They got endorsements, and they haven't even finished a full freshman season yet.
When we go back, and we got one right here in our back door. Look at Divya over here at Vanderbilt, right? Kid come from New Mexico, went JUCO, and because of him, with this lawsuit he had against junior college, and they gave him that year back, that started something else, that this year the freshmen are going to be in a situation at junior colleges that they can play 2 years and it won't count against them. And no one knew who the heck he was. And Divya was down there in New Mexico, comes up here with Vandy, like you said, knocks off Alabama, knocks off, Georgia or Tennessee, and he has a great year this year, and now he's on the map. But who I really like that this is really for, in my personal opinion, is that it's for the kids, Johnny, in my opinion, who are not going to go to be a professional, right? I got the kid on the team that's got a 3.5 GPA, and he needs this money because he can't afford grad school when he gets out. But I can sit there, and I know I'm not going to make $1 million, but I can make the minimum of 100,000 or 200,000, and I can put that money up or start investing it. And now, with a little NIL and maybe a little bit of collectives that I may get here and there, and maybe I go pick up a sponsor here and there, I can walk out of college in 4 years knowing that I'm not going to go pro, but I got a bank account that's worth $2, $3, $4, $5 million that it's going to give me a good start on life. I think that's the key where you got, because we know what 10% of anybody on the team go. So out of football, maybe 10 kids go out of 100. Basketball, maybe 1.5, 2 people go out of 15. So if I know those numbers, why not make sure that everyone else in that position, or at least set for life, or if not, set to get their life started? That's what I like where this thing is done.
I agree. For those kids to set to get their life started. Some of these kids that are athletes, they dedicate their lives, their time, their energy, to their school, their loyalty to their schools, blood, sweat, and tears to their schools and to these athletic programs. And at the end of it, we'll just have their memories
Right.
and maybe some trophies or some medals or something
That
to
was
go
us.
show along with it. But yeah, that was us. That was our generation. But now, these kids have an opportunity to earn more money during college than they might make in their first 5 or even 10 years after graduating and becoming employed in some cases.
Exactly. And look
So
at it
I think,
and look at the change. Here's what the change is, what I love about it. Two things you're going to see. I've been preaching about this, and I keep telling people, and I heard it just recently. You're going to have a super league in college football. They're going to have to expand to 16 soon because they're the only one, because basketball and all that can show. That way you ain't got to worry about holding 4 or 5 teams out. It's like basketball. You just create a Sweet 16, and I don't have to worry about if Johnny going to go to the national championship game. I just got to be better than Johnny tonight to get that win and put him
yeah,
out. And I don't care what you do. You can go talk all you want, but you at home watching me. And what you're seeing
hmm
now in college basketball this year, with all 4 number 1 seeds basically making it to the final, is that you're now going to see this money. Unfortunately, the bad part about it is the smaller schools. Your national championship game is basically winning your conference now. And if you can get to the
yeah,
Sweet 16, then we're going to have a big party. But other than that,
hmm
the money is now going to start to show up at the dance, right? We're going to know who wearing Gucci, Prada, and Chanel as opposed to somebody who walks through there with some Nike and Adidas on, right? So we
yeah,
understand that. And if we can look at that and you see that, you're now, one good thing with basketball is finally back. These kids are older now. They 22, 23 years old. They're getting the education. They're finally graduating. They're not becoming professionals. And maybe I'll come back and get my degree. Now they're focusing on getting their degree. And the ones who don't, they're cool because they're going to get that money and they're going to be a professional athlete anyway. So to me, it's a win-win. I just don't like the fact of the matter that when Nick Saban is now trying to go get this thing re-regulated to go back. Why? It was cool when you was making all them millions at Alabama and you was killing
hmm
everybody. But the moment that they start
yeah,
killing you and put you out, now you got a problem with it. That's the same
yeah,
thing happened with Calipari with Kentucky. And he had all that talent. But how many rings did he win?
hmm
I mean, national championship. One.
yeah. One. Yeah, I don't agree with what Coach Saban is, his take on it because, like you said, he benefited from some aspects of NIL before it became to the benefit of the players. The program was getting, and he was using the program to do using the money in the program to do what he had to do. That's why he was able to recruit players. I'm sure there was some under the table NIL going on in
Oh, yeah.
Alabama for all those years he was coaching.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So don't be mad that
Right.
it's above the table now and
Alabama's a brand.
everybody else can play. Yeah, it's absolutely, man, for a reason, and it got that way for a reason. We almost at the end of this, man. I enjoyed this conversation, Tony, especially basketball. We're talking about basketball, football, college sports, NIL, Chicago hoops, a little bit of everything. LaVar Ball. What advice, though, would you give to a middle school athlete who has struggled to make their middle school teams but have dreams of playing sports at the high school level?
Well, that's funny because I just came off of a meeting from them. That's why I'm late to get into your podcast. Being the head coach at St. Cecilia High School here in Nashville, I had a meeting set up this morning with a potential athlete walking in. And I think after the meeting, I think she's going to, as we say, sign or come or go through admissions.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked that exact question this morning. Well, I didn't ask it. It was asked of me from my mother that, what do you see that you could assist my daughter in doing better than where she at? So I asked a rhetorical question, and that is, when you start anything like you did this podcast, like I did, you first of all put yourself together what? A roadmap, right? Because you need to see where you're going. When you get in that car, Johnny, you go to go take a trip from here to Chicago. The first thing you do is what? Put on Waze. See how far you got to go and make sure you got the correct directions. So what I try to do is it's not so much to me, and the reason why my players have loved me over the years, I helped them get to where they are, is I asked them about their personal roadmap. And I asked the young lady that, how far do you want to take this sport? Because everyone's different, John. Some kids just want to play in high school. I just want to have a good high school experience, have fun, and I'm going to go ahead and go kick it in college and play edge and act a fool. Some kids say, hey, I want to use this, and if I can use this academically to get a scholarship and go play at the next level, doesn't matter what level it is, I'll take it. And then you got some kids say, hey, I want to go on to the WNBA or the NBA, and this is a stepping stone. And I need for you to teach me everything you can teach me at this high school level so that I'm an effective college student athlete to get me where I've got to go. So once I have that roadmap, then now I can start to set that destination on what we need to do. Then I'll lay out the first thing I do as I talk to these kids. Johnny and I ask them is, what's your work ethic like? What are you doing? Explain to me right now, when you wake up every day during the weekday, what do you do? Well, some kids, I get up and eat breakfast, head to school, kick it, do whatever, get out of school, play basketball, come home. Okay, gotcha. Well, do you know the kids that are out working, you are getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, they working out between 5:30 and 6:30, take a shower, then go to school. Then for lunch, they find a gym or go jogging. Then after school, they go work out again. Then they go to practice. Then they come home and put up 400, 500, 600 jump shots or work on ball handling drill for an hour till their arms hurt. And like they look at you like, with their eyes open, because that's what it's going to take to get to this next level. And then the last thing I tell the kids, Johnny, is that if you want to go next level in what we call the new era of the NIL, the new era of recruiting, then you've got to figure out how to do it better than the person next to you. So if you and I, Johnny, at the same high school, when I walk through the door, I don't know what your mindset is, but what I was taught in Chicago and how we would gritty grimy is there's only one scholarship available, one. And as much as I love Johnny, I'm getting that one scholarship. And if that's it, and if I push you, you're going to push me. And every day in practice, I'm going to make you better. And every day in practice, you're going to make me better. I don't want to play with you in practice. I want to play against you because I want to see what your game look like and vice versa. And if you can do that and do that at a high level. And then the last thing is stay in your books. What I've noticed that a lot of us, we focus so much on the contingency of woulda, coulda, shoulda. I want to be a pro. I would have did this. But then when you get to the college level, then they forget how to study and put all of it together. Because when you get to college, kids who are listening to this, you're going to figure out how to put them together. This is why we recruit, as we say, student athletes. I don't recruit athletic students. So you got to understand, go to class, do your homework, be available for your professors, make sure you pass your courses, turn in paperwork. And if there's something that you struggle on, don't run away from a tutor, run to the tutor, because the tutor is going to keep you eligible. And if not, then you're going to be back around your house talking about, well, Johnny, man, I tried, man, but coach didn't like me and all that. Be giving you a lie when you dig into the story and find out it was all about the kid.
Yeah. Not giving the full effort, not putting in the work, having a stated goal, but not a set goal in here. You can speak what you want to do all day, but if it's not in your heart to give forth the effort, it's not going to happen.
Right.
I asked that question for a specific reason. I got a son playing middle school basketball, so that was a question really like I'm gonna let him watch this for sure. But hopefully there's a lot of other kids, there's a lot of other middle school kids out there that are trying to make their high school teams or have desires to play. And as you just heard Coach Tony, where is it in your heart? First off, we got to take some inventory there about where this is and where you want to go with it, and then you got to go from there with a game plan. We almost at the end of this, Tony, and but you played a lot of basketball in your years. You coached a lot of basketball. You're consulting with people in the NIL space right now. You have a podcast, the Pull Up Podcast Show, that's centered around the sport of basketball. So as of today, what is Coach Tony's ultimate hoop dream, and is any version of that dream still alive in you today?
Man, my ultimate hoop dream, man, believe it or not, would be, one, give all the grace to God. He continues to bless us, because right now, Johnny, I got a lot of friends of mine that hadn't made it recently, and on the sick and shut in. God bless, send out a shout to this particular podcast and my guy, Herb Dewberry, who just passed away 2 weeks ago. His son plays at Rockville High School here in Nashville, also played on my AAU team. Talked to him on a Wednesday a couple of weeks ago before Easter Sunday, and wife called me back, and a day later he was gone. So knowing that, every day is not promised to, we get up and give it all to God. My hoop dream right now would be in position to see the young women that's underneath me at St. Cecilia go on to do the things they want to do, especially those that want to go on and play basketball. And then my ultimate dream is my two granddaughters, 7-year-old Skylar Wilson and 2-year-old Olivia Patton, to see them come in and do big things, learn the game of basketball, which they're working right now. And God puts me in a position that 10 years from now, my little 8-year-old granddaughter, 10 years from now, is walking across that high school stage, getting ready to go play college ball. And I can just sit back and watch, because I know that everything that I've done now, I poured into her. So that would be the ultimate hoop dream for me.
That sounds like a dream realized, when that happens, when you're able to sit back as a grandparent and watch your granddaughters, graduate and be athletic and express all of their athletic potential. That's after a career that you've had, just spending so much time around the sport of basketball, to be able to sit back in good health and in a good mental space to watch your children, your grandchildren, take that next step. It's a full circle moment. It's like when that happens, it will become a full circle
Oh
moment for you.
man,
You
God.
play,
Oh,
you coached a lot of people, and you're paying it forward. You've led a life that has somewhat made an impression on your family members, because it's trickled down to your grandkids. And after all of the years of time and dedication that you put into the sport, for your granddaughters to be able to look up and say, I see the life of someone that has evolved around this thing that I love, and as an inspiration that I can do this for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Like, I can be involved in this for the rest of my life. That's big, and to me, your hoop dream, even though you expressed, what it is it really is a life centered around, um, the joy of the game of basketball.
oh yeah. And I'm gonna send a big shout out,
That's
man, to my uncle Kenny Thompson. I'm gonna make sure they watch it. So make sure I get this link. My uncle Kenny Thompson in Louisville, Kentucky, man. My cousin. You better put this name down. I'm telling you right now. Quentin Thompson, my cousin, Ballard High School, #1 quarterback in the state of Kentucky. He's the next one coming. So you better look out for him. He'll be with me rocking with the Rise. Be doing some big things next year on a college football station near you. But the kid can flat out play.
Shout out Quentin Thompson. I'll be looking out for him, man. We got me get you out of here with one last question. This is a bonus content question that I call "What's Your Rush?" as in Mount Rushmore. As you know, Mount Rushmore has 4 iconic faces, 4 iconic images on it. And so, my question to you is, what is your Mount Rushmore of the 4 people who have inspired you the most in your journey?
Oh man, it inspired me the most in my journey, man. Besides my mom, doing the things that she do, because mom always gonna go upside your head. I remember when I got taller than her, she told me I'd knock you out. I'm only 5'11". 4'11",
Yeah.
5 foot, but I'm telling you, I'm swinging from up under the bottom. And and the biggest one I would start out would be my aunt Dorothy Burgess. I never forget when I was a senior in high school, getting recruited. She knew I was getting ready to go play basketball and all that. And she made me sit down. And at the time, we got a large family, John, and 13 uncles and aunts, a lot of the kids. And in my
Yeah.
family, at that time, she said, we weren't going on. The kids weren't going on. I'm the oldest grandchild. Weren't going on to graduate and do nothing. And she said, I just need you to make a promise. Whether you make it big, don't make it big, or whatever, come back and finish your college degree and all that. And I did it in 4. And from that time, me graduating class of 86, class of 90 out of college, every one of the male in my family, boys, have gone on to graduate college and or pledge. So it was thanks to me for starting that trend and getting it going. So they would definitely be on that Mount Rushmore. Second, third one would have to be my high school coach, Coach Herb Ray. He saw something in me. Kenny will tell you, I was the captain of the basketball team walking in freshman, sophomore year. Just didn't care. I was all about hooping.
Mhm.
And he made me see what it was like to want to coach one day. And do you know, Johnny, that 30 some years later, when I take my team back to Chicago, I stay in touch and he comes out and watches me. So listen when I say it, kids. I'm still talking to my high school coach 30-something years later, 30 years later, when there was no cell phone, right, Johnny? And so I got his number. He comes out and watches my kids play it and all that, man, which has been totally phenomenal for me. And then, I would have to say, man, the last piece would be, give thanks to Coach Moore at Fisk University, who gave me the chance and shot to say, go out, here's what you want to do. Because I walked in with no experience, no nothing, started into as a volunteer that evaporated and evolved into where I'm at today. And I had to give him this shout. So that would be the personal Mount Rushmore for me right there that built who I am today.
That's an amazing account of individuals who have inspired you. I was wondering if maybe someone who's giving you an opportunity or something like that would be on there, but you also have family members on there, and you have coaches, and it's really about your Mount Rushmore is a testimony to me to your actual basketball journey and how you've been inspired in the area of basketball, which to me indicates that a huge part of your life, Tony, is centered around basketball, is balanced by the love for basketball. And do you feel, just as a side note, do you feel like if basketball wasn't part of your life, that you wouldn't be you?
No, because the piece that you also need to pick up in there is the mentorship. I got hell of a relationships. I got coaches I can call. My guy, Coach, as I call it, Coach D, Coach Dorian, who's at Lewis University, just took over the job. And I talk, and he says, man, just been connected with you for a decade has been great, and opportunities to come possibly work with him. Coach Travis McAveen is doing some other stuff for me, connect with those. My guy who just gives me my left and right punches in the game is Coach Quanzo Martin. Zoe, as big as he is, never shut me out. Anything, he'll call me back. The whole 9 yards. Johnny Dawkins, the guy that me, Coach Johnny Dawkins. Those that don't know Duco, Johnny gave me opportunity. I came out to Stanford when he was at Stanford before he went to UCF. So if I'm looking in the game of the business, then that Mount Rushmore looks different. But before I could have gotten to that business, all these people that were around me had to show me how to get there. So the reason why I put it like that, because I want to leave these middle school kids, high school kids that you just mentioned a moment ago doing the interview. If you're going to get there, you'll get to those business people, but the people that are right around you right now, those are the people that's going to make or break it. They either can tell you the right thing to do, or they either can tell you the wrong thing to do, but they're going to be the ones that make or break it.
That's the foundation. That's definitely foundation. This episode has been called Hoop Dreams Still Do Come True. My very special guest has been Coach Tony Thompson. I've enjoyed this conversation. We learned a lot. Hopefully, if you're watching, you learned a lot about NIL, about basketball, and AAU sports, coaching youth sports. Tony, this is an opportunity for you to provide any information to the viewing audience that you want to give out. How can they reach you? How can they find your podcast? Where can they go? Where can they follow you on social media? The platform is yours.
So, I got to get you on my podcast, baby. You got to pull up. You know what I'm saying?
I'm coming. I'm pulling up.
Okay, you got to pull up, man. As I tell everybody, one, man, first of all, thank you. You and I have been trying to get this together for quite some time, man. And this was a pleasure. This was absolutely awesome. And this last 2 weeks has been crazy, Johnny. I've been on the morning show in Atlanta. I've been on the afternoon show in Baltimore, a late afternoon show with Wise in New York. And so it's been great, man, that finally people are watching the show. I'm finally getting invitations to come out and talk to other people and doing some things and all that. But if you want to reach out to me, a couple of ways you can do it. As I mentioned a moment ago on Instagram, please check me out at the Pull Up Podcast Show on Instagram. And for those I still call it Twitter, they call it X. Then my original one is at Chillman7, but the Chillman is spelled differently. It's ChillMan7. That's a play on word for a Chicago, Illinois man. So Chillman7 is how you can get a hold of me. And then, of course, with the podcast, tune into the podcast every Monday night, 8:00 p.m. Central Time, 9 Eastern, 7 Mountain, and 6 on the coast. Go to YouTube or all your social media and type in the Pull Up Podcast Show. Join us, like us, love us, and become part of the audience, man.
I'm subscribed to the Pull Up Podcast. Make sure that you go join the Pull Up Podcast, watch the current episodes. Follow the Pull Up Podcast too, because you probably see me on there one day soon. Anyway, man, Tony, this has been great, man. I appreciate it. I want you, viewers, if you're watching, please make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Make sure that you like this episode and share it with someone. If you know a young hooper, if you know a parent of a hooper, if you know a coach, if you know a high school athlete, if you know a college athlete, you know someone who's questioning the NIL space. This is an individual who you want to be in touch with. He just gave you all his information there. Coach Tony is available, and Coach Tony has a wealth of information to provide, especially if you're looking to advance from high school to college in the NIL space. Coach Tony, thank you for being here.
I
This is the
appreciate it. And I'm
Revisit
going to
Your
give
Dreams.
one more piece of information real quick before I get out of here. As you just mentioned a moment ago, we started something brand new this upcoming Monday, May 19th. Make sure you watch the show because I got 5 young girls that's going to be out of my high school. I'm starting something for the summer because the kids are getting ready to get out. It's called Spirit Week. So and as Johnny just mentioned, if you have an athlete that is under the radar that nobody knows about, that you want to get out there and get some social media behind, if you got a team or something of that nature, then reach out to me again on the social media at the Pull Up Podcast Show or at Chillman7. Reach out to me, get with me so we can talk about it. And you never know, you may be on the show.
Absolutely. And before we leave, when I get off here, I got some people to throw your way as far as what you just said. So we're gonna do that. And you mentioned some people that I might want to interview as well here on this episode. So if you've been watching, thank you again. Thank you for sticking here with us on the Revisit Your Dreams podcast. Our episodes will air Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on The Ride on YouTube.com. I'm your host, Johnnie King III, aka Still Chill Leroy. That's my boy, Coach Tony Thompson. We out. One love. All right. Dope. That was nice.